Aloha, nice to be here. JohnRemus.com TV, broadcasting from Starbucks here. Lots of umbrellas inside since we have a impending hurricane. And I wanted to share 10 concepts, 10 things about politics I think everyone should know and they might not be aware of. One of them being that when you watch the news or read the newspaper, these are owned by corporations, which might describe things on these media outlets. They might have an opinion or a skewed representation of the facts. That's one. And of course, not to, maybe even the reporters and other people involved in government might only reveal certain information. So, try to get your own perspectives and study, and at minimum, number 2, learn some of the terminology. Learn what the GOP, Republican Party, means. That means good old party. Lots of brief videos on YouTube that elaborate upon what capitalism is in association with the Republicans and all the key issues, dealing with whether it's a women's right to have an abortion or not, and try and learn maybe the top 10 key platforms that people are usually pro or against, and number 3 being the concept of the unions. Now, the unions are organizations that help workers to get a better pay, and also to get to perhaps restrict people from immigrating. Like, they only give work selectively to local people because they want to protect local people and protect their employment. And the reality is that many CEOs get as much as 300 times pay annually compared to their employees, which I think is, in a way, I'll make this number 4. In a way, and this is my personal opinion, in a way I think, well, that's okay, because, it's a capitalist society, and people have a right to offer a service and get paid what they want. So, for example, I feel like people have a right to say, okay, this is who I am and this is what I'm willing to offer. Like, the CEOs offer somebody a job, and they're not going, they're not doing something amoral, I would say. Like, I think people should have a right to offer someone a job for, $1 an hour, and whether or not they take it or choose it is up to them. And this might be giving some people power, but I think it's making it at least a fair, fair choice, where you're not forcing someone to do something, forcing someone to, if you want to employ people, you have to employ certain people and pay them a certain wage. I don't know if that's fair in a totally free society. And it empowers the individual to, you've got to figure stuff out. If you want to make your life better, you've got to figure it out. Get educated and so on. And number 5 is that the concept of socialism wants to give people money who are not able to make their own money, essentially. It wants to give people health insurance, food stamps, housing, and other accommodations, just because they can't make it on their own. And for me, my position is, when I get older, I'd rather commit humane suicide, or if I get sick, instead of wanting other people to pay nurses to do things for me. And this is important in politics, because it's at the forefront of things. It involves a lot of money, and it involves both the Democratic and the Democrats and Republicans, and it's an issue that it's worth looking into the the movie Which Country Should We Invade Next shows some positive things of socialism in certain European countries, but there are negative things, of course, too. You know, and socialists might want to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but if half of that gets paid towards taxes, you know, in a socialist type of setting, then guess what? They're going to only be earning $7 an hour. Of course, they'll have other benefits, but still yet, you know, I like the idea of money because it empowers the individual. It kind of gives people choice if they work hard and they invest and they do things smartly. You know, and by the way, people who are wealthy do so by investing. You know, sometimes there's a stigmatism against wealthy people. I'll make this number 6. There's a stigma towards wealthy people that, oh, they're lucky, you know, they should share all their wealth. But I feel like they deserve the wealth, whether they received it generationally or, and in fact, statistics suggest that half the people actually made their own wealth. Half the millionaires in the U.S. made their own wealth, not from generational, but by their own. And the way you do it is by patience, strategy, education, and not focusing so much of your energy on relationship after relationship, intimacy, and waiting for that right one, waiting for that one that's going to help you with your business and help you and be smart and not want to, you know, have children earlier. You know, all these things like giving people help because they're poor and they have lots of kids. Like they put themselves in that predicament. Like that's the perfect way to enslave yourself or be not free, is to have children when you can't afford it. And so, you know, how are these people? So that's another thing to think about. And another thing more, I'd say, interesting is the idea that politicians, they are quote unquote good or bad people. Like, what are they? And generally I find that they are people who are not financially independent, that actually want or need money to, whether it's pay off student debt, you know, maintain their lifestyle, pay to sustain their lifestyle. They actually need to be compensated as a job. And I don't think that qualifies you for being a politician. I think you should have your own independent money, and you should be able to volunteer 2 or 5 years in politics, and, you know, run a campaign using social media, and essentially maybe accept small donations of $20 a person or whatever it is, but just nothing big or significant, and nothing, you know, only towards signs and maybe renting a room to have an event. You know, not huge monies that could make people corrupt or go towards one side. You know, I feel like this whole idea of paying politicians, even forgetting all the ideas of accepting big money from companies, just the idea of paying politicians at all. And I'm not saying everyone, like the secretaries, the security, the law enforcement, and transportation associated with dealing with political leaders. I'm okay with that, but as far as actually paying them a stipend, I think it's not realistic. And what else is maybe number 7? You know, is the way people present themselves. Now, you know, it's a good thing, I think, when politicians they you know, wear a nice suit, or women wear a nice, you know, dress up formally. So just to be cautious of, say, politicians who are not, you know, they don't have themselves groomed when present themselves nicely. Like, even though I think Mr. Bernie Sanders has at least he has some of his own ideas. Like, for example, his hair, it seems to be unkempt often, and same with Mr. Trump. Like, I would prefer to have people that are a little more sharper, kind of like, say, Mr. Barack Obama. He was always well presented and diplomatic, you know, in his speech and his image. And number 8 is it has to do with position. Is somebody in a position to run for office? And I think not only should they be is it born in the U.S. and of sufficient financial independence to be able to volunteer, but also I think they should have a significant other, a spouse, because if they do, then that spouse will be able to look out for them, and also to that person won't be, they won't be like looking for a spouse during. It's kind of like the concept of a church, their pastor of a church having a certain, you know, they having a spouse, you know, that makes them more positioned to be less corruptible. And number 9 is the very idea of politics. What's politically correct, what's not. I like when people can be honest. I'd like to hear a politician say something like the ups and downs they've gone through in life. They should publish it. They should publish their tax records, and they should have themselves show themselves. You know, if you're going to want to be in that position, you're gonna have to show more than the average person. Reveal, you know, who you are, and maybe some difficulties you've gone through in life. And finally, number 10, just politics in general. Like, how do people respond to politicians? Like, how do you react to them? And, you know, some people react by creating negative statements about certain people. I think instead of all the drama, it should be just a simple, like, instead of saying like, this guy's so mean, he's so rude, you know, he's not a good person. Instead it should be said that you know, this person, they either do or don't follow the expectations of that are set out. And, you know, what I mean by that is instead of there being, you know, all the craziness. And by the way, again, a reference to my earlier number, I think it was number 1 or 2, is to watch out for the news, because they actually make money off of drama and whatnot. People watching the drama as entertainment. It's not supposed to be entertaining. A politician may be entertaining, like Mr. Trump, but is he also moral and fair? And, you know, I think he's true to his spouse, but his spouse is like, what, 20 or so years younger than him, and that gives me the question of, you know, does she want to take care of him when he gets older? Like, if that's true love, then the answer would be yes, and I'd be okay with that. But the feeling I get when I see them on TV and whatnot is that they're not totally into each other, and I wish it was otherwise. Maybe it is otherwise, but we'll see. The point being, investigate. Don't always trust the news sources. Look into things. Look into what the values are, and look to what a person's motivations are for running. Thanks for considering, and aloha.